An oversight group is continuing to question what it calls excruciating experiments on monkeys by Anthony Fauci's NIAID. According to Waste Project, the NIAID spent $13.5 million on experiments on monkeys with various infections. Now, the experiments took place in South Carolina with a population of 3,500 monkeys, and it also finds that beagle dogs were subjected to similar testing.
Taxpayer-funded animal experimentation is something that everyone should care about, whether they care about animal welfare or government waste or both. So we really have something for everyone, and it's a nonpartisan issue. It shouldn't be a politicized issue, and we're trying to, make sure that it remains that way.
Several members of Congress, including Senator Rand Paul and Congresswoman Nancy Mace, are pushing legislation to end cruel animal testing.
For those of us who've been paying attention since the start of the pandemic, the figurehead of all the villainy and terror inflicted on the American people has clearly been none other than Anthony Fauci. Anyone with half a brain can see the high prophet of pharma has consistently been inconsistent, has backtracked, lied, changed his science, and taken every opportunity to impose tyranny on our nation. Well, if the lockdowns, nonsensical mandates, hypocrisy, and experimental vaccines weren't enough to convince you, Fauci has just taken the final step in becoming a comic book supervillain. Now, apparently, he's murdering innocent puppies. Seriously, this isn't a joke. And despite the AP and Washington Post bending over backwards to lick his goose-stepping boots, Fauci's division of the NIH reportedly spent $424,000 on experiments torturing dozens of beagle puppies. Reports indicate the researchers funded by Fauci locked the beagles' heads in cages and then infected them with disease-causing parasites to test an experimental drug on them. Naturally, the dogs barked and yelped in pain, but apparently that got annoying for the researchers who were torturing them, so they cut them open and removed their vocal cords. And when the scientists weren't infecting the beagles themselves, they reportedly locked them in cages out in the desert for 9 days, using them as bait to attract the infectious sandflies. And why beagles, you might ask? Well, apparently because beagles are such docile and forgiving breed that they don't bite the researchers who are torturing them. Now, PolitiFact and other leftist fact-checkers are taking issue with this story. Naturally, you can't attack the high prophet of pharma without riling up his leftist lapdogs, which they should probably be careful knowing what Fauci does to lapdogs. Reports countering the story, including from the NIAID itself, denounced the claim that the agency provided money to this particular study. They defended by insisting everything done to the beagles was done strictly according to the law. Well, it's good to know the law allows researchers to torture puppies. In fact, if you didn't know, the law actually requires researchers to kill the puppies after the experiments are finished so they can dissect them and see how the drugs affected their organs. Don't worry, these animals aren't being illegally tortured. They're just being experimented on and murdered according to the law. If the claims are true that this particular study wasn't funded by the NIH, there are still dozens of other experiments the agency does fund and which do involve torturing animals, including beagles. These experiments happen every day with the blessing of the US government and the approval of Anthony Fauci because they happen under divisions he's in charge of. If he wanted to stop puppies from being tortured, he could do that. That's within his power as the person in charge of the NIH. Now, we've got some footage here, reportedly from experiments funded by the NIH. This is what it means when they say these people are following the law. We have to warn you, the footage is appalling. Sensitive viewers or anyone with a heart, an ounce of decency will find this very disturbing, but we think it's important to show you exactly what Fauci's researchers are doing. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have been horrified by the discovery and are demanding an explanation. Contradicting the fact-checkers that the NIH doesn't torture animals, Fauci's division at the NIH performed similar experiments on beagles in 2016, strapping capsules full of infected flies to their bare skin. They've been doing this for decades. And as disgusting as these experiments are, perhaps the worst part is that none of it is necessary. The tests and drugs don't even help people in the end. In fact, the FDA says it doesn't require drugs to be tested on dogs. These were just monsters carrying out monstrous experiments, and all under the umbrella of Anthony Fauci's National Institutes of Health. Of course, neither Fauci nor the NIH have responded to the discovery of their despicable behavior. But it's not surprising because Fauci has been doing this for years. And when he's not torturing puppies, he's experimenting on orphans with AIDS. If that sounds like it can't be true, I wish it weren't. But back in the late 80s and 1990s, the NIH, under Fauci's direction, tested AIDS drugs on hundreds of foster children. The drugs were given to the children without proper protocols and without having independent monitors to watch over the children, in violation of the law. At the time, Fauci was the director of the Office of AIDS, which just sounds like a terrible place to work. So it's ludicrous to think that he wasn't involved in and didn't approve of using these vulnerable children as guinea pigs. Doctors at the time said the children were readily available to researchers, in part because there weren't strong protections in place to keep them safe. Of course, Democrats and the radical left have rushed to Fauci's defense with hack fact-checking websites like Snopes claiming this isn't true, even though the article admits in the first line that it is, in fact, true. Fact-checkers at the AP will tie themselves in knots to protect someone who sanctions murdering innocent animals. And after this story broke in June, the Washington Post even published this despicable article, an insult to animal lovers everywhere, calling Fauci their dog. I know the left loves to call people on the right Nazis just for getting out of bed in the morning, but it's not hard to imagine that these leftists would be the same people defending Nazi scientists for their atrocious experiments. We're not at that point yet. But this is the same blind, sycophantic mentality that tries to justify tyrannical, inhuman behavior. And so far, the left seems to be pretty okay with it. People, Fauci included, try to give him credit for all of the miraculous discoveries at the NIH. But if he's going to get credit for all the good the NIH does, then he bears responsibility for everything it does, including torturing dogs, experimenting on children, and gain-of-function research in China. Evil wears many disguises, and none more dangerous than the mask of virtue. People have to be willing to stand up to tyranny, to recognize it for what it is. And believe me, everything we've been experiencing the last 18 months, and those that are perpetrating it upon us, are the very definition of tyranny. We know this was a really dark story, and so we want to try and end it on a high note, and with a quick reminder. This is a leader who does know how to treat beagles. And here are some videos of happy beagle story. And so we want to try and end it on a high note, and with a quick reminder. This is a leader who does know how to treat beagles. And here are some videos of happy beagle puppies who managed to escape the NIH and didn't get caught by Anthony Fauci. Already, thousands of people online have marked their dogs safe from Fauci and his sadistic researchers. Is this the man we want making critical healthcare decisions for our families, for our nation? Do the right thing. Keep your children and puppies safe. And let's get rid of the dog-murdering, child-experimenting, evil scientist, Anthony Fauci. For One American News, I'm Pearson Sharp.